Welcome back to the show. Eric Mangini is with us. Hey, Coach, welcome back.
Missed you last week, Coach. Good to see you.
What, Coach?
Genius.
You look like you got something to say.
No, I mean, there's a correlation between me not being on the show and Kansas City getting dumped.
No. I don't do the scheduling.
I'm no math major, but it doesn't add up.
You weren't responding to my text. I text you congrats.
I couldn't hurt your feelings any worse than they were hurt.
Good to see you, Coach.
Good to be here.
Great to have
So
you
much.
here. Let's talk about the Patriots. Clearly, their fans are not getting tired of this endless dynasty. Nearly 35,000 showed up at the pep rally at Gillette yesterday to send them off to their third straight Super Bowl, 9th in 2 decades. Been there, done that, and yet the fans still want more. Tom Brady had a fun time motivating the crowd before heading down to Atlanta.
Let's let them hear it all the way down to Atlanta. We're still here. 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 All right.
Definitely doesn't have a chip on his shoulder or anything. He did drop the mic there. Coach, how is this Patriots team different than other Super Bowl teams?
To me, they're legitimately riding the underdog narrative, and to some degree, it's valid. They have the worst record since our first year in the Super Bowl. The amount of adversity went through in the offseason with Jimmy Garoppolo, and then there was the infighting. Then they lose their #1 draft pick. Julian Edelman suspended for 4 games. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing something else.
Well, Josh Gordon in and then out.
Well, Josh Gordon in and out. They trade Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
They lose.
Replacing Nate Solder on that offensive line.
There's another one replacing Nate.
Deion Lewis, Danny Amendola.
Yeah, so it goes on and on and on. And then they weren't very good on the road. They were able to go on the road and win. Tom was too old. He threw too many interceptions. So that all those things have played into where we are now. And in hearing them talk, that underdog narrative is something that they've legitimately bought into, and in other years when you hear him talk about the opponent and there's this a lot of flowery compliments, that strategy, this seems a lot more sincere in terms of nobody expected us to be here, and we are here.
Here's what's not different about this Patriots team. Just like every single Super Bowl appearance they've had, except for 2011, they got a top 8 scoring defense. That one way or another, Bill Belichick and his staff figure out a way to make sure this defense is in the top quarter of the league every single year the team's good. Again, the outlier year was 2011 when they had an average scoring defense. To go along with it, just like every year they've been in the Super Bowl post 03, they've got a top 5 scoring offense. So that's where they're similar. Oh, top 10 defense, top 5 scoring offense. That's been the case throughout this run, basically after the first 2 Super Bowls. To Coach's point, what is different is there was legitimate reason for skepticism. It's why I don't feel badly about the idea that you picked them to lose to the Chargers. Well, they had a worse record than the Chargers. Picked them to lose Kansas City. Well, they've been terrible on the road all year long. Like you started to see some cracks in the armor, and I think one of the reasons Patriot fans are adopting this mantra as well is it's a little projection. Because I listen to enough Boston talk radio to know, you know who was the most critical of this team? Folks in Boston. Guys that call EEI. Guys saying, you know, last year was our last best shot at the Super Bowl. Brady doesn't look the same. Why did they trade Brandon Cooks? Where's our weapons? And now they're right back where they seem to be every single year. So that's the difference is it wasn't just trying to find a reason to pick on the Patriots. There was reason to be skeptical. And then they played in my eyes, their best 2 games of the year in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think this team is totally different than the team we've seen the last couple of years. Major difference is the offensive line, their ability to protect Tom Brady. Since week number 12, he's been sacked 5 times in 295 dropbacks. And they're not a throwing team. They are a dominant run team. So their ability to protect Tom Brady and their ability to dominate with the running game with Sony Michel. So this team is totally different. I believe in the NFL, running the football is really underrated. It's not real sexy, and it's hard for people to explain why teams outside of an outstanding running back, Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, why teams are able to do it. So how they play is not real sexy. It's not real it's not innovative. They're not doing new things. They're doing things the New England way, the way they've done things for a long time, throwing the ball to the middle of the field, getting the ball to third and medium, converting those first down, getting some yards after the catch, getting Gronk isolated in one-on-one, and the red zone defense, to me, the last 10 years has always been spectacular. So they're doing a couple different things. Protecting Tom Brady and having that running game has allowed them to get over the warts of 3 decisive losses on the road by double digits, throwing those interceptions early in the season. This team has rebuilt itself throughout the season to play their best football in January.
But they're also really angry for some reason, and they're really frustrated for some reason. Tom Brady has yet to do a post-game interview or a pre-game interview or an Instagram video that doesn't allude to the fact that nobody believed in us. Here we are, whether it's walking out towards the bus with Gronk with that smirky smile, or it's what he'd said at the pep rally. You saw in other Super Bowl teams from the Patriots.
Well, there's some merit to what they're saying. They had 2 Pro Bowl players. They had less Pro Bowl players than the Jets. And every single week it was about why they should fail. It was about who. When you hear it week in and week out and all you do is continue to find a way to win, it gets a little bit old.
But so here's the thing. The Patriots this year were discussed and treated like a typical NFL team. They weren't discussed and treated like the Jets. They weren't discussed and treated like a bad team or even a mediocre team. They were discussed and treated like a typical pretty good team, which is, hey, you know what? Each week, about 30% of the analysts are going to pick you to lose. Usually, your quarterback isn't in the discussion for the MVP, and Brady being in this year would have been ludicrous. For the Pats, when you have been sailing on a cloud above the fray for a decade, when you start all of a sudden getting treated like a lot of good teams do, you can use that as motivation, even if other teams would take that commentary.
I know it's beyond that, because most of these guys are drafted by the Pats or they come there from somewhere else, being Hogan, like coming from Buffalo. New England's been hated for a long time. So it's not like they just have to conjure this up. Either you're drafted by Sony Michel when he was drafted from University of Georgia. Man, it was automatically people going to be against him because he played for the most successful organization. And by the way, they have been involved in a few scandals. I'm talking about legitimate scandals. So let's not forget, people don't like winners, and then some of the other things that have come out of New England as far as them knowing the rules, doctoring the rules, and doing other things that the public has had a reason to kind of despise New England.
All right, Coach, stick around. Coming up, can Antonio Brown and the Steelers get back together? Plus, plenty more on Anthony Davis possibly joining LeBron and the Lakers. That's next on First Things First.
Jenna, you don't sound like you're into reunions.
No, I'm
I didn't see Jenna.